Hey guys, you are invited to another trip to space today, but this time we are not going to stay close to the Earth like when we went to Mars, to the Sun, or to Jupiter. We're going to go beyond the solar system and discover the mysterious but countless exoplanets. The concept of exoplanets has existed since the 16th century, but the real discoveries happened only in the past decades, especially in the past 15 years, as the search for exoplanets became one of the priorities in the scientific community. New tools were put in place to explore space, including a powerful telescope called Kepler that the NASA put on an orbit around the Earth, and that has been responsible for hundreds of discoveries in the recent past. Exoplanets are particularly difficult to discover because, given the distance, they are tiny objects in comparison with the stars. You remember that in the solar system, the Sun accounts for more than 99% of the quantity of matter. It is gigantic in comparison even with the biggest planets like Jupiter or Saturn. And this is why it is particularly difficult to detect these objects. But still, astronomers found their way, and I'm going to tell you about how these planets were discovered before we go quickly visit a few of them. It is very difficult to actually see these planets, but they have been often discovered thanks to something called the Doppler Effect. The Doppler Effect sounds complicated, but it's very simple. In fact, it is something we experience every day. And to understand it, we just need to take an example. Maybe you already noticed that when you are in a street and an ambulance or just a car passes, the sound you hear is different and changes as the vehicle is coming close to you and then going away. And in fact, the sound waves sent by the vehicle are stable, they are always the same. But as the vehicle is moving, our perception of these waves, of these sound waves, is affected. When the vehicle is approaching you, moving in the same direction as the waves, this reduces the distance between every wave, and the sound we perceive seems more high-pitched. Then when the vehicle is going away, the noise sounds deeper and deeper. This is the Doppler effect. The waves sent, emitted by the vehicle have been constantly the same, but because the vehicle was moving relatively to us, our perception of the sound has been affected. And this is very useful when it comes to astronomy, because every object in space sends waves. So if we are able to listen to these waves, to analyze them, and knowing the Doppler effect, we may determine where and how the object that emitted them is moving. And with a much more complex use of this effect, many exoplanets have been discovered, most of the time without even having an image of what they may look like. In fact, the portion of space that has been explored until now is extremely limited. We are searching for exoplanets in a tiny space, a tiny perimeter around the solar system, and nevertheless hundreds, maybe even thousands of planets have already been discovered. This lets you imagine how many planets may exist just in the Milky Way in our galaxy. Officially, there could be something like 400 billion planets just for the galaxy we live in, and there are billions of other galaxies. But if we stay just with the Milky Way, 400 billion planets means that that would correspond to something like 50 planets per inhabitant of the Earth. This is hard to conceive. But what it also means is that the probabilities of finding another planet somewhere in our galaxy where the conditions are comparable to what we know on Earth in terms of elements available, energy sent by a star. These probabilities are fairly high given the incredibly high number of planets that probably exists in our Milky Way. And these discoveries have also affected the very definition of what a planet can be. Traditionally, a planet was an object orbiting around a star and large enough with enough matter to maintain a spheric shape. But we have started to discover, or we suppose, that planets exist in the galaxy that are not orbiting around the star. They would be freely traveling in the galaxy. And there could be also planets orbiting around a black hole and not a star. So even the definition of planets is being challenged by recent discoveries, and And to illustrate that, I would like to travel to a few of them that have been discovered in the past few years. First, we are going to Belerephon. This is the informal name given to the first exoplanet that has been identified. This happened in 1995, less than 20 years ago, and this planet is 50 light years away from the Earth, incomparably farther than the last planets of the solar system, like Pluto. It is a gas giant like Jupiter, but one that is orbiting very close to its star, so close that it completes a revolution in just 4 days. And it means that 1 year on Bellerophon, one full revolution, lasts only 4 of our days. This planet is half the mass of Jupiter, but still that is 150 times more massive than the Earth. And it surprised astronomers because it was believed before that the gas giants had to be farther from the stars they orbited around, and the new class of planets called the hot Jupiters has been named after this discovery and other gas giants orbiting very close to their star. It is estimated that the temperature at the surface of Belerophon must be close to 1000 degrees Celsius, which obviously makes life as we know it impossible. Another major discovery happened in 1999 with the planet Osiris, which is another hot Jupiter kind of planet, orbiting even closer to its star. A complete revolution takes just 3 days and a half, and Osiris is so close to its stars that its atmosphere, mainly made of hydrogen, evaporates and is blown away by the gravitation. Osiris also probably contains oxygen and carbon in its atmosphere, which are the ingredients for the apparition of life as we know it, even though the conditions on this planet make it impossible for the forms of life we know on Earth to appear. Another breakthrough took place in 2005 with the discovery of a planet named Tatooine. This is a reference to Star Wars. And this Tatooine planet is the first one ever discovered to orbit in a system with 3 stars. There are 2 stars of a smaller size which are turning around each other, and these 2 stars are at the same time revolving around a bigger 3rd star. The together with planets like Tatooine. It was supposed in the past that the typical solar system in the galaxy was made of one star with planets revolving around it. We now realize that a majority of stars are interacting directly with others in double and triple stars systems, and this makes even more complicated and exciting the study and the discovery of the conditions on the planets that might be part of such systems. I told you Belerephon was 50 light years away from the Earth. Osiris and Tatooine are 150 light years away from our planet. And in 2005 too, the first terrestrial rocky planet outside the solar system was discovered, nicknamed Hoth. That is another reference to Star Wars, and this Hoth planet has a mass estimated to be between 5 and 6 times the mass of the Earth, and this makes it very probably a dense and relatively small planet in comparison with the gas giants that has been discovered before. Hoth is several centuries away from the Earth in light-year terms, and it orbits relatively far from its star, which means that it receives a very limited energy from it, and the temperature on its surface is estimated to be something like minus 220 degrees Celsius, which would make it a ball of rock and ice. Since 2009, astronomers have started to detect entire systems with a star and 5, 6, 7 planets orbiting around it. And some of these planets are at a distance from their star which is comparable to the Earth and the Sun, making it even more likely that somewhere, given the millions of comparable planets that must exist in our galaxy, forms of life could have appeared. Traveling to one of these planets remains unthinkable at this stage, and it should be unthinkable for at least decades because of the distance mainly. There are now hundreds of other planets that have been discovered, and this is just accelerating thanks to Kepler, the telescope, and the focus and better understanding the new models that have been put in place to detect these planets. But we are talking about centuries or even millenniums of light years, and it is impossible for now to even send a probe given the incredible time necessary to reach these parts of the universe. However, we keep discovering things. Now there are several new planets that are discovered almost on a weekly basis. And the surprising thing is that the more we discover about the universe, the more we realize how gigantic, how immense it is, and how small we are. But still, it is fascinating to know that we are able to understand phenomena that started billions of years ago, or detect objects without even seeing them. We are now going to return to our planet, and as usual, I hope you found this moment interesting and enjoyable. See you soon. Bye bye.